Good day to you from morbid, Tartarian, St. Augustine, Florida. This is Medusa Was Framed, and I am Joyce. And today I'm going to talk to you about the history of this building and the man who rehabbed it, that being Francis Hollingsworth. So this building, now referred to as the Treasury, sitting at 24 Cathedral Place, is right in the center of old historic St. Augustine. It's right on our main greenway, Constitution Plaza, on King Street, which is the foot of the Bridge of Lions. It's the only skyscraper in St. Augustine, being 7 stories tall. Now, as you get out of historic Old Town, obviously there are taller buildings than that. But at the time that it was built, 1926, and in terms of the historic line of the city, this is the only really tall building. Now, I have to tell you, this being clearly a Tartarian city with a star fort, old city walls. Actually, we had another star in the city at the opposite end of the wall. All the red brick, all the bell towers, you name it. I really found this one unusual. The construction didn't quite fit in with the rest, but the red brick, the bell tower, the plasma collectors here on the top really made me suspicious. And as in often the case, these grand buildings that supposedly in the 1800s or early 1900s, we're to believe these magnificent, monstrous buildings were built to be banks, just doesn't make any sense. And of course, those are all over. I had some in my hometown of Sacramento, California, the city of the gold rush, as we say. Anyway, I was always fascinated with this building because of its size towering over the rest and over the top construction. Yeah, having looked at a lot of Tartarian buildings, this one didn't completely make sense. That light tower there at the top looked more to me like a lighthouse, like a Fresnel, than an old bell tower. And that confused me. And I have to admit, it made me suspect for a while that this might have been originally a docking station for a Zeppelin. Even if the story were true that it were built in 1926, well, there were Zeppelins in 1926. There were Zeppelins all over Florida. There were Zeppelin docking stations in Key West, Miami, Opelika, which is north of Miami, of St. Augustine, St. Petersburg, which is across the state on the Gulf Coast, and Jacksonville, which is just an hour north at the Georgia border. So this absolutely could have been a Zeppelin docking station because that looks more like a Zeppelin dock than it does a bell tower. The light still works. The light's on every night. This is a recent photo. And of course, all these plasma collectors. But something wasn't quite right about the construction of the building compared to some of the older, obviously Tartarian buildings here, Moorish buildings here, like Flagler College, like Hotel Alcazar. So I started digging. And so let's go ahead and poke along. So before the building that you just saw was there, this was there, the First National Bank of St. Augustine at 24 Cathedral Plaza. This is King Street, but because it's right next to our cathedral, it's considered in the Cathedral Plaza. So technically it's on King Street. But this is where what we call the Treasury building now sits. I'm going to sneeze here, I think. Maybe not. I couldn't find a date as to when this building was built. All the history I found was about the Treasury and its restoration. But it looks just like the cathedral, which you will see in other photos. Though you can't deny the Moorish style, the very tall Moorish windows. And this is exactly what's on top of the cathedral. And a place for a bell. This was the first bank. And it remained the first bank until Mr. Hollingsworth was brought in from Virginia to build the new one in 1926. That's what we're told. And I have to tell you, as much as I wanted to believe it couldn't possibly be true, there's irrefutable evidence that it is. That this building was built in 1926, or at least that this building was built when the new Bridge of Lions was being built. There's photographic evidence. So they were both under construction at the same time. Was it 1926 or was it earlier? Well, that's debatable. We know that there have been semblances of photography since the 1700s. And evidence in Library of Congress photos that I have found online for St. Augustine alone from the late 1700s into the 1800s. Very simple stereoscope type photos. So we know the photography was around. So the 1926 date could be movable, mutable. We just know that they were being constructed at the same time. Anyway, okay. So let's scoot ahead. This is what the original building looked like. That's the tower from the building now. There's a functioning light in there. And you see, it looks like it's Tartarian copies, right? Something's not quite right about it. Though that could be the refacading that obviously has gone on since 1926. So this is the guy. This is the guy in question. So a little backup. First European supposedly setting foot in the New World was Ponce de Leon in 1513. Put his foot out on the barrier island between the Matanzas River and the ocean. We now call it Anastasia Island. That is where Ponce de Leon is supposed to have set foot. St. Augustine as a city, and therefore the first Spanish Catholic European settlement in the US, supposedly happened in 1565 when the butcher Menendez de Avila supposedly set foot on the land that is now the Mission Nombre de Dios, Our Lady of la Leche National Monument, which is just north of what is now the Castillo San Marcos, Star Fort. Put up his little wooden cross and started butchering the Timucuan natives. The Castillo was supposedly built between 1672 and 1696. That's our big Star Fort. Our first lighthouse supposedly was built in 1850. Seawall around the city, 1690. And Henry Flagler's first hotel, the Ponce de Leon Hotel, was supposed to have been completed in 1888. So Henry Flagler is the guy who is noted in history for unifying what came to be known the Florida East Coast Railway, and who built and completed the overwater trestle system that linked Key West, all of the Keys, to Miami, thus making the Florida East Coast Railway system a consistent system from Key West, Florida, all the way up to the Georgia border, the top of Florida. Henry Flagler first came to St. Augustine in 1881, liked what he saw, thought he could turn this into the Southern Riviera. Flagler got his money from being one of the yes men associated with Rockefeller and Standard Oil. Shill, shill, shill. One of the most notable guys for the true meaning in Tartarian sense of the word founder. He found things. He found things that were here, spent money to snazz them up and turn them into capital ventures, build big statues and put his name on everything. He was a founder. So he moved here in 1885. He started construction on what is now Flagler College, what was then the Ponce de Leon Hotel. And this massive hotel is supposed to have been built in 2 years in the 1880s, less than 20 years after the Civil War, in a very war-torn state. Cough, cough. He started construction on his second hotel, the Alcazar, which is now known as the Leitner Museum, in 1888, and is also supposed to have finished that. It had a Turkish bath, a Roman bath, a sub-ground pool, plumbing, tennis courts, you name it. All of this stuff in this age of horse and boggy and dirt. Not to mention that he had to clean out the marsh area, drain it, and fill it before he could build the hotels on top of it. That doesn't get mentioned in all of the stories about this nonsensical time, but there are old photos that prove that this land was watery, marshy. St. Augustine has 3 rivers and 4 big creeks. We're surrounded by salt marsh, and the Atlantic Ocean is just over the way. So yes, most of what is St. Augustine is reclaimed from marsh. In 1915, this man here, Francis Hollingsworth, was hired by the Florida East Coast Railway to come on down to this booming Riviera of the American South to do some reconstruction and renovation. He moved here in 1915. In 1915, the city had, at least that I can find, 5 massive, and you'll see pictures of them, absolutely massive, opulent, old world Tartarian, quote, hotels, unquote. And there were things that he needed to restore. So Flagler brought him on down, and he was given several projects. This is the old St. Augustine High School. That burned. Of course it did. Of course it did. Actually, there were 3 massive fires in the history of St. Augustine that I can find interesting. Most of the fantastic Tartarian stuff is burned down. Anything that wasn't built out of brick, stone, or coquina is gone. This is the old St. Augustine High School. He is attributed with building the replacement that first year that he arrived. He's also responsible for building this building, which I was delighted to find is literally a 5-minute bicycle ride from my house. I live in the historical district. This is the St. Augustine Waterworks, and everything was built within 2 years of him arriving, so they say. Anyway, this is still standing. It's not used as the Waterworks building anymore, but it's still standing, and you can just see that it's lovely. That's inside. They've put up a stage of some sort. That's a photo I took through the window. That's the side. You can see there used to be something here. That was a window of sorts, something that they filled in. There's also a building next to it that they added onto it. There's a close-up of that old window. Must have been some generator or something in there. And that's out behind there. Isn't that fascinating? Was that a well? I don't know. And that's the back. Obviously, that's been added on. And that's the new building that was added on. You can see there were, what do you call it? Little things there, shade things there. And I think those windows might have been added. That's a close-up of that circle. So there were bricks and then concrete over it. I don't know what that was. There isn't a whole lot of history that I could find quickly on this building. But yeah, interesting. He didn't build this, but it's right next door, right? The Waterworks building is right there on San Marco, and the next building is the Armory. And I couldn't find any historical information about the building of this, but of course it's federal land, so nobody's going to tell you anything. But yeah, more of this Moorish stuff. And what was up here? A bell. The same thing is on the back side too. So no, Hollingsworth didn't build this, but just more beautiful Moorish architecture and lying history. This is the new St. Augustine High School. This is the building that Hollingsworth is supposed to have built. You can see there has been some refacing. Obviously, the roofs are new, but you see all of this good stuff. Those are real chimneys, not radium chimneys. But you can just see, you get a sense for this man's work and style. Look at that. Look at all that brick and concrete, brick and concrete. Anyway, these photos are just to give you an idea of this guy's style and what he did. This also is just a few minutes from me. I rode my bike here in less than 10 minutes. And he built this, the first synagogue in St. Augustine. This he built in 1923. This is a little further out. This is not in the what we think of the historical district of St. Augustine, where all the tours go. This is what in an area that we call Lincolnville, which is south of the old walled city, south of the historical district. It's at one point it was one of the places where the indigenous people were allowed to continue to live somewhat peacefully. There, when St. Augustine was owned by Spain, they opened their doors to slaves that wanted to escape the brutal treatment in Georgia and the Carolinas and such, in exchange for converting to Catholicism and defending Spain and St. Augustine when called upon to. So consequently, we had an enormous population of escaped slaves here in St. Augustine. And those folks, though many lived in the old part of town, Spain, of course, having this large Moorish history, saw no problem with Black folk living right next to white folk. So there was complete integration, but there was also this community that was south in what we now call Lincolnville, where they were able to set up communities that were more familiar to them, as opposed to the in-town Spanish, set up communities of their own. So where the poor folks lived, essentially. Lincolnville, yeah. Called Negro Town on some old maps that I've seen. So these are some of the things that Hollingsworth also built. Again, just giving you a sense of his style so that when we go back and look carefully at the Treasury building, you'll understand. And this is probably his second most famous thing that he built. Excuse me, this is St. Francis Barracks at the Army National Guard headquarters that is in Old St. Augustine. It marked the end of the old city wall, the old seawall. It's where the Dade pyramids are. If you've been watching my videos, you know about those. There is, in the Civil War National Cemetery that sits on the St. Francis Barracks ground, a memorial to the 1,500 soldiers who died in, probably more than that, the Seminole Wars, the 3 Seminole Wars, the wars between this US territory and the Seminoles. It's kind of a mass grave site where we are to believe 3 pyramids were erected to honor them with an obelisk. And the pyramids just happen to sit on the exact same latitude as the 3 Giza pyramids. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, that's another story and another video that you can check out. Anyway, so yes, he rebuilt the St. Francis Barracks in colonial style. That apparently is what Flagler, who ran the town, wanted. And this was done in 1922. The building itself is all coquina and has obviously been faced with more attractive constructions. But you see, this is looking to me of his style. this was the big deal. This was the main project that he had been known for. Now, this is a little relativity. Hollingsworth did not build this. This is the Hotel San Marco. And to give you some relevance, this is one of the corners of the Castillo San Marcos, our big starfall, which we're supposed to believe was built in the late 1600s. So here's this. Here's the people. This was here. This stuff is so hilarious. There were at least 4 hotels on this scale here in this little tiny town. This little tiny town. 4 hotels on this scale. Oh, and this burned, by the way. This burned, like everything else. It sits on a combined area of what is now the visitor center. If you come to St. Augustine, right across the street from the Castillo San Marcos is the visitor center, which is the same alignment as from the watchtower from the Castillo San Marcos. But it also continues to sit on what was the old moat. This is now the area between the Huguenot Cemetery and the Visitor Center, and the old Cuba line and moat that ran along that old fortification is underneath all of this. That water is still there. It's culverted, but that water is still there. So this is on that property, but you can see it's massive, and it also extends down to what is now the corner of San Marco and Castillo, which is where Ripley's Believe It or Not sits on the bay side. And over on the inland side here, there is a hotel that was just finished last year, and it's called the Castillo. And they built it to look like this. I found that very amusing. They built this hotel to look like the Castillo, to look like the Hotel San Marco. But just relevance now. So what we needed in St. Augustine was another grand hotel, right? We didn't have enough, right? Look at that. This by itself is another story in another video. Look at that back there. Boathouse, maybe. That's another body of water. That's the San Sebastian River back there. The Matanzas River would be right in front here on the other side of the fort. Anyway, that's just put there to give you some relativity. This was a very small town. I don't know how they think anyone's going to believe that this very small town that had this seasonal business, these hotels were only open a portion of the year, could have built all this grandeur. So I did not take this picture, and you can tell by the quality of the photo, the blue and whatnot, that this is a few years old. But this is the current Bridge of Lions. You're coming over from Anastasia Island, you're crossing the Matanzas River, and you're looking down King Street. What you see is the Treasury Building, 24 Cathedral. This is the bell tower of the cathedral, which is right next door to the Treasury Building. And back here are the bell towers from what were the Ponce de Leon Hotel, which is now Flagler College. Over here, you have what was the Casa Monica Hotel, then became the Cordova Hotel, and now is once again called the Casa Monica. Flagler built this. Flagler did not build this, but when after, we are to believe, the first year of it being opened, there was just too much competition in the city for grand hotels, and it was about to close. So Flagler bought it. Once again, he found it. Behind, now this hotel does not look old. You'll see pictures of the original. It has obviously been modernized and refacaded, and you can tell that from here. Behind it, though, you see a part of what was the Alcazar Hotel, which Flagler it takes credit for building. It's now the Leitner Museum. This is King Street. This is Constitutional Plaza. King Street is two one-way streets. You know, they go east and they go west. So sometimes in this presentation, you'll see views of King Street, but it might be the other side of the street. You're going to see in some photos another old grand hotel that stood on this corner, which was the eastward directed side of King Street, which was known as the St. Augustine Hotel. That stood here. Another shot, you come off of the Bridge of Lions. You can either go straight west onto King Street, or you can turn here onto San Marco. So here again, this is 24 Cathedral Place, the Treasury. That is the tower for the cathedral next door. This is an old postcard or something, not that old. That RAV4 isn't that old. But that's pretty much what things look like now. It's very bustling here. Constitution Place, Place de Constitution. This is always one restaurant or another. This stuff is from the original building here, which you'll see in photos looks just like this. This stuff here, this is what Hollingsworth built. And of course, Hollingsworth built that. That is the cathedral. See, it looked just like the old bank. And it looks just like the armory. That's the bell tower. This is all Flagler College. It's more extensive than this. The hotel that we're supposed to believe Flagler built in 1 year. With detail like that. Nonsense. So here we have an old photo. There was no date attached to this, but this is King Street. See, we've got the tracks. So early 1900s, I would say. We've got the tracks. That looks like the Hotel Alcazar to me. Now called the Leitner Museum. Okay, again, I don't have a date for this, but here's a photo of what things looked like. This is before the bridge. One side of King Street, the other side of King Street. This is the westward direction now. The bell tower for the cathedral, the old bank, these businesses that still have this stuff here. And I think this might have been, there used to be a bathhouse out here. I think it was called Capo's Bathhouse. And they had different kind of baths. You know, you could, depending on how you lived, you could go pay to take a bath or a shower there. But they also had, because everything around here is artesianal water, you could have a hot mineral bath. That might have been where that was. But yeah, this was before the bridge. And obviously, the bridge and the reconstruction of the bank are supposed to have happened at the same time, 1926. So clearly before that. But beyond that, I don't know how to date that photo. And this is the St. Augustine side of the Bridge of Lions. There's a bridge, there's a lion on either side. These were designed to mimic some lions that are in a castle in Florence. There's a lot of history on those guys too. They have names, and well, we know a lot about that symbol right there. Yes, indeed, we do. Here's an old photo of the Treasury building. So this was after 1926. There's a little more detail that you can see on the roof. See, there's a little more stuff back here. This doesn't exist anymore. This is just a plain block. All these plasma collectors are still there though. Again, everything's pretty quiet. It's a small city, really. It's a small city. Now we're going to see some photos of the inside of 24 Cathedral Place. Now, let me just remind you that Flagler contracted Francis Hollingsworth to rebuild the bank, to build it grand, to build the high rise, to put office buildings in, because the city, I suppose, was busting out with all that Standard Oil, Rockefeller, dirty money. So you look at that grand building, the ground floor of the building was still the bank. Behind it was all supposed to be businesses. Still are today. There are over 100 businesses in the Treasury building, including the St. Augustine Archaeological Association. Oh, excuse me. I won't talk about what I think about the archaeologists in St. Augustine, being an archaeologist myself. Anyway, this is a photo of the inside of the Treasury building. Pretty much today, I have not been in. It's not something you can just walk into. It's only open for private events. Let me tell you the banking history. It was the First National Bank and rebuilt as the First National Bank. Then it became the Exchange Bank of St. Augustine. Then it was known as the Espinosa Sanchez Building. In, excuse me, in 1887, it was the Atlantic Bank of St. Augustine. 2001, it was Wachovia Bank. 2008, Wells Fargo bought it, and in 2013, they moved out. In 2014, it was purchased by Kassam Hospitality and turned into the Treasury, what we now know as the Treasury. And the Kassam group spent 10 million to renovate it and turn it into this grand gala, big wedding venue here. So these photos that I'm going to show you, some of them are during that renovation time. You can walk up to the front door and look in, but you really can't see anything. So these are all from the internet and the website. But there, of course, is the old safe from the bank. And so Mr. Hollingsworth did his homework. I mean, look at this, you know? When I first saw these pictures, I was like, this was an arch, right? And this has all been filled in. This is so Tartarian. But it's not. He copied it because this scope of building didn't exist back then, and the photos prove it. Sometimes you have to admit your hunches are wrong. This, I think, was 1933. I think that is the date on this image. Here we've got the newly constructed Treasury building. You see there it says the Exchange Bank of St. Augustine. You know, I wonder if it's younger than that. I wonder if this was like 1927 or something, because this looks like it's all blocked off. So maybe they were still working on things. But anyway, next door, there is not a theater there now, but next door at the time, there was a theater, and you see it's hopping. Distant drums. I guess I could look that up and date it. Now here's an early photo of St. Augustine taken from the top of the Castillo San Marcos. So this person is standing on top of the Star Fort, and he's looking south, because to look north, there was nothing to see. This is the seawall that was built at the time, which was part of the original city wall. The Kubo line, the north line of fortification around the city, was right here, and the moat that was there, and that culverted water that you now see as a pond in front of the visitor center is part of that old moat. But I just want to give you a gauge. This was the place. There's Capo's bathhouse. Obviously, the bridge wasn't there. But there are some grand things that don't quite make any sense. Or, well, they're just not there anymore. You see, it's dirt, very simple construction. And then you have this. And then you have this. And these two big smokestacks. And this tower. Now, as I said, I didn't have a date for this photo, but it looks older than 1885 to me. What do you think? Do you think this photo looks older than 1885? Because this looks like a portion of what is now Flagler College. And this looks like one of the buildings at Flagler College. There was a smokestack. There still is a smokestack at Flagler College, and there was a smokestack behind the Alcazar Museum. That one is gone. This all looks like Flagler stuff. But those didn't happen until 1888, 1889. I think this photo looks older than that. What do you think? And again, look at the town. It's not that big. Look how simple it is. This, I think, is the Casa Monica. It's too small to have supported the skilled labor to have built all this. More Tartarian conundrums. Here's a shot. This must have been from the top of the Hotel San Marco, looking at the fort, how it looked at the time. That's the Matanzas River. That is Anastasia Island. And on the other side of Anastasia Island is the Atlantic Ocean. And I think that's the lighthouse. So this is a fabulous photo. Again, things are very, very simple here. But this community had at least four grand hotels. That's absolutely ridiculous. This is the old city wall gate at St. George Street. Yeah. More Tartarian confusion. Huh. These are from where it says the St. Augustine Historical Society. And this is, though I don't have a date, this is a photo of the St. Augustine Hotel. Constitution Plaza. So yeah, so what we need is another grand hotel, another grand venue. We don't have enough. And, you know, we're supposed to believe that Flagler built all this stuff in this community. So I guess these people were up at the top of, let's see if it says where they were. The Magnolia Hotel. Okay, so they're over on King Street. The Magnolia Hotel's not there anymore. But they're on King Street and they're looking north. So this over here is the fort, you can kind of tell. And we're looking at the town. Pretty simple, right? Again, it's not that big of a place. I mean, the river's right here and the other river is here. This is not a big place, but here is the Hotel San Marco. Really? Really? I'm not sure what that is. Yeah. More Tartarian mysteries. You can't do CGI on these old photos. Oh, okay. I snuck this in. These are, this is an old photo of the Dade pyramids. So these three pyramids built out of coquina, and they're not white, by the way, anymore. They're just their coquina color. We were supposed to believe that they were covered in stucco to be white to match the Dade obelisk. These three pyramids are on the same latitude as the Giza Three. Those sit in the Federal Cemetery on St. Francis Barracks, which is part of Old Historical St. Augustine. Here's another anomaly. So when Flagler got here in the late 1880s and he started buying up railroads, what was happening was each railroad company had its own unique gauge wall for the track and for the wheels. So if you had to ship something across Florida, you might have to go through 3 or 4 different train companies because different trains couldn't run on different tracks because they all had different gauges. So what Flagler did is he bought up all these old railroads, relayed the track, unified the trains, so that any train could run on any track. And then he built the trestle system from Miami to Key West. Now, there were tracks for trolleys all over Florida, too. In fact, Jacksonville, which is the city north of here, had one of the biggest trolley systems in the United States at the time. So Flagler bought these systems, and is that a date? Let's see, bottom of that. I don't think so. He bought all these systems, and part of what he bought were these tramways. Now there are a couple. I think this one is in town. He bought the trams, he bought the tracks, but they were all run by horses. Huh. What do you think of that? Does that make sense to you? Or does that sound like Tartarian history stuff? This is just a lovely photo of what things look like before the Treasury building. So this would have been before 1926. This is what this looks like now. This is the old bank. This is the cathedral itself and the tower. The bell tower at Flagler College, the rotunda at Flagler College, the bell tower at Flagler College. Another cool old photo, car dates it, getting a sense of things. Photo of the old seawall. So this is the Hotel St. Augustine. This is the old original seawall. Just a sense of the city. A lot of dirt, wagons, but we have this grand hotel and many more, much grander. Yeah, right. Here's the current seawall. Let me see if I can give you a little info on that. The original seawall was built in 1565, we are to believe. In the 1830s, after several hurricanes and storms, it was in great disrepair, and the city had grown so much that West Point sent cadets down, and they spent 10 years from the 1830s into the 1840s rebuilding the seawall. That's not the seawall that you're looking at now. But they rebuilt it and they extended it further to encompass more of the city as the city had grown. The seawall that you're looking at now was a FEMA project that was done in 2012, cost $6 million. And this is what it looks like now. It's a lovely seawall. The Castillo San Marcos is behind us. This is the Matanzas River, and that's the Bridge of Lions. Okay, so this is the back of the Ponce de Leon Hotel, which is now called Flagler College. The smokestack still stands. I've got some great photos of that Tartarian masterpiece. It's all red brick and concrete. And interestingly enough, the building that's now using this, the department that's now using this building is the art department, which I love. This is Flagler College all the way up to here. This used to be the Ponce de Leon Hotel, and when it was taken, this was the Ponce de Leon Hotel. You're supposed to believe that this was built in the 1880s in a city I showed you the size of in less than 2 years. And we're not supposed to discuss the fact that this ground was all part of the marshland of Santa Maria Creek and San Sebastian River, and that this land had to be drained and filled in to build all this. We're not supposed to take that into consideration at the time, the sophistication of this elevation. We're not supposed to take that in consideration. Now, that's not all. If you look a little further and you look across King Street, then you see the Alcazar Hotel, which was also claiming to be built by Flagler in 1888 to 1890. So less than 2 years to build the Ponce de Leon. He had to build the Alcazar, we are told, because he was running out of space here. He was running out of space in this hotel. And so many people were crossing the pond and coming down to Florida and riding on his railroads that he had to build another hotel for an overflow. So he built the Alcazar, which had a Roman bath, a Turkish bath, an indoor heated pool, you name it. Now, next to that was the Casa Monica. This is the Casa Monica at the time. The Casa Monica was not built by Flagler, but I'm looking for the notes. The gentleman that built that hotel spent, all these guys did all this in less than 2 years, right? So this was done in less than 2 years, but 4 months in, he was going broke because I guess this was just a little much for this little community. So he sold it to Flagler, which Flagler was happy to buy because Flagler loves putting his name on things. And he actually built a bridge connecting the Alcazar Hotel to the Casa Monica, which he renamed Cordova. So all of this in the late 1800s, all of this, and each hotel was built in less than 2 years. This hotel also had a full spa. But you know, what's so funny and roll your eyes, you know, none of these hotels were built with bathrooms in the rooms. Because the story goes that at the time, people didn't think that that was something that you were supposed to have. You didn't need your own bathroom in your room. You were perfectly happy going down the hall to a dorm style bathroom. You know, you might be paying the equivalent of $1,000 a night or more to stay in these places. But you didn't need your own bathroom. That's what we're supposed to believe, because they didn't have bathrooms. All 3 of these hotels had massive reconstruction projects within 5 years of their opening to install plumbing. Here's another view. This is the south side of Marine Drive, looking across the Place de Constitution to the bell tower, the cathedral, the old bank, the slave market. This is the smokestack at Flagler College. Here's another shot of the Hotel San Marco, which burned. And again, really, you've seen old photos of the city at the time. That was the place. That was the town. And yet these grand things we're supposed to believe were built with those people. It's just another shot of the Hotel San Marco and the old city gate at St. George Street. This still stands. Here's a shot of the St. Augustine Hotel, which sits across the Place de Constitution from the Treasury building. Well, it doesn't anymore. It's looking south. Another big hotel. You just don't have enough big hotels in this tiny little town. There's a really good shot of the St. Augustine Hotel. Place de Constitution. That would be called Marine Drive now. Of course, this was the old seawall, which has been changed a great deal and has been filled in and came right out. That was part of the building of the bridge. But isn't that wonderful? It's kind of like this, I don't know, Japanese kind of style. Wonderful. Another topic for another video, all these hotels. Here's just an interesting old watercolor. There you see. That's the Presbyterian Church. That's the Casa Monica. That's the St. Augustine Hotel. Those are the bell towers at Flagler College, the rotunda at Flagler College. You can see the smokestack right there. The bell tower for the cathedral, the old bank in question. Okay, so a little more about Flagler and his railroad. None of this could have happened without the shenanigans that Flagler pulled on his railroad. This is the old railway station, which no longer stands, unfortunately, but it's down on Malaga Street. So the foot of the King Street Bridge that takes a person across the San Sebastian River is Malaga Street. And this lovely building stood there, and look at those radium fireplaces, chimneys, look at those radium chimneys. This stood at Malaga Street. There's a very nice shot of St. Augustine during the period of time we call Nights of Lights, the entire month of November. Everything is all lit up and the city comes alive. And here is the renovated Bridge of Lions, the Treasury building, the bell tower for the cathedral, and that's part of the bell tower, one of the bell towers of Flagler College there. I live in such a pretty place. Now, here's a really good one. First of all, I want you to look at what that says. March 18th. What does that say? Does that say 1876? Or does that say in the year of Yeshua, 876? I'll let you decide. So an old stereoscope, both images are the same. It's for those cool old glasses that my grandma had one of. Let's just take a look. So this person is standing on top of the Castillo San Marcos. That's the old original seawall. Capo's bathhouse. 1876, okay? 1876 or 876, or you decide. 1876, okay? Flagler's not here yet. None of the grand hotels have been built yet. 1876, Flagler's not here. Here's the city. Dirt. Most sophisticated thing probably is Capo's bathhouse, right? You can go get your hot mineral bath. What's this? What's all this? Flagler wasn't here yet. Oh, and did you know that Flagler used the grounds around the Castillo San Marcos as a golf course? For his guests at the Ponce de Leon, the Alcazar, and the Cordova. A golf course. Oh my God, too funny. Old Hotel St. Augustine, the cathedral. You know, now this one is interesting because this one shows that the Hotel St. Augustine was on the same side of the street as the cathedral. And yet in other photos, it's on the other side of King Street, the other side of the Place de Constitution. So that's kind of an anomaly. And I can't tell. I think that's a rendering. That's not an image. Here is the cathedral after one of the many storms and fires, and what was left of the cathedral after a fire. Florida went from Spain to England to Spain and to America. And when Spain took it back, I'm going to have to put this quickly on slideshow to restart, and then I will go slide by slide. There we go. Okay. So when Spain took St. Augustine back, they rebuilt the cathedral. So the cathedral that we see now is that the foundation of which is that rebuilt cathedral, and that looks just like the old photos. They rebuilt it to look much like the same. So this is a photo of a fairly recent photo of the line after the bridge was renovated. There's the Treasury Building, the bell tower. That's all Flagler College, and this is all part of Flagler College too. Here's an old photo. This would have been the Ponce de Leon Hotel back then. Now it's called Flagler College. These are still there. All this grandiosity. And you see the old radium chimneys. The vents are open. Some of these vents have been left open. Some has been filled. But yeah, this pretty much still looks just like this. This is from the Cordova Hotel. Here's a photo of stuff in question. In the 70s, they put this old clock up here so people could see what time it was. And that's the city wall gates at St. George Street. That is the Hotel San Marco. There's a photo before 1926 because there's the old bank. That's the old slave market. Now, here we go. This is the hotel that we are to believe was built in less than 2 years in the 1800s. And in less than 4 months, the guy was going broke, so Flagler bought it. This is the Casa Monica street view that Flagler renamed the Cordova and then has now been reopened as the Casa Monica with a full spa, indoor heated swimming pool. Just take a look. Again, you saw the city. You saw the scope of things. What we need is one more grand hotel. Flagler took this over in 1888, so it is believed to have been finished either in 1887 or 1888, but within a 6-month period of time of opening, it was going broke. And so Flagler purchased it in 1888, renamed it the Cordova, and in 1902 built the connecting bridge. The man who is attributed with building this hotel was named Francis Smith, and he decided to build this after coming down, building what is now the Via Zorada, which is a hotel and another historical Moorish building here on King Street in St. Augustine. He decided to go in the hoteling business after he saw the success of Flagler. This is what we're supposed to believe, and built this, but screwed up. Look at this. Really? Really? I'll let you make your own decisions on that. This is after one of the hurricanes. I don't know which one. Looking north on Marine Street. The old original city wall, sailboats up on the road. Old slave market, that would have been the Hotel San Marco. Yeah, so this is the city. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to slide show back to where I was. Sorry about that. I pressed the wrong button. Sorry for this review. The Hotel San Marco, by the way, was supposed to have been built in 2 years. All these things were built in 2 years, we are to believe. There, now we're catching up. Okay, built in 2 years by a gentleman named Isaac Cups. It had a billiard room and a theater. Again, so this is looking north from the other side of King Street. So this was probably taken from the top of the Hotel St. Augustine, but back away from things, right? Not directly on the water from St. Augustine. See, the Matanzas River would come out this way. So this might have been from the back of the Hotel St. Augustine, or maybe even from the Casa Monica. And we're looking north. You see the Hotel San Marco. You can see the fort. You can see the bell tower of the church. This was the city. Very simple. unfinished land, hither and yon. But this city built these 4 grand hotels and more. Another cool little photo, what things looked like at the time. The cathedral, Flagler College, the old bank, Place de Constitution, the slave market. The slave market that the building still stands and it had a bell tower. Isn't that interesting? And what happened to all those bells, right? Didn't the Nazis take all those bells? This is a postcard of Flagler's train station at Malaga Street. Horses and buggies ready to take all these folks that are coming from all over the country and all over the world. We are told 2 presidents stayed at the Ponce de Leon Hotel. This is all gone. What is still here marking this is a plaque in the ground. That would have been the smokestack behind the Alcazar Hotel. This was a Flagler property. Okay, so this is the photo that broke my heart, that proved to me that indeed the Treasury building was built in 1926. This is the construction of the new Bridge of Lions. Again, Flagler had his hand in this too, and behind it is the construction of the Treasury building. So it was built in 1926, Sigh. And here, if you remember, that's the skyscraper part, and here are the portals. Photo I would say was probably from the 60s or the 70s of how things looked. So in the photo behind, you just saw the frame for those portal things there, rotunda things. You know what? I think I put that photo in there twice. I apologize. That would have been, okay, the Atlantic Bank. Let's see, I might be able to date that photo based on it being the Atlantic Bank. So that would have been between 1987 and 2001 that was taken, because you see it was the Atlantic Bank at the time. That's the cathedral. Oh, and look at that groovy woody car. Yep, dated. Okay, here's some more photos of the inside of the Treasury building during the renovation after Kassam Hospitality took it over in 2018, the $10 million renovation. So this used to just be the bank, right? And they're turning it into their splendid venue. I walked up and took a picture of the door. The doors are locked. But that's what the front door looks like now. You look in and you really can't see anything. And here is the venue at an event, at a wedding. And you see the safe in the back there. I so prefer old photos. I'm so interested in the origins of these 2 buildings because they're so similar. They look Spanish, but they're so similar. Do you think the people that built a church built a bank? Well, maybe, I don't know. This one was dated 1970. So coming off of the Bridge of Lions, if you go straight, you'll go down King Street past all this. If you turn like this truck is turning, you'll go on to San Marco and drive past the Castillo San Marcos. I took that picture. It looks like now, what it looked like then when that was the theater. So, oh goodness, I did it again. I did it again. So as that runs through, I'll give you some more dates. We're going to be talking about the Bridge of Lions here in a second. There were 3 bridges that stood on that place. The first was a simple bridge for the streetcars that existed at the time. 1895, and it was referred to as the Bridge to Anastasia Island. It was renovated in 1984 and 1904 to carry the trolley, and then done in grand scale in 1926. Here you see that bridge being built in 1926. And here we're getting close. That was done by the J.E. Greiner Company. There was a land boom in Florida, made in large part due to a developer by the name of Davis, who had a great deal of success in the Tampa Bay area, dredging up peninsulas and islands and building grandiose developments there that did very well. So he came here looking to do the same thing over on the Anastasia Island side, because the city of St. Augustine was not as desirable for people that they didn't want to live in the city, they wanted to live on the beach. So he did a dredging project over in what we now call Davis Shores, which is on Anastasia Island, right on the Atlantic Ocean. And that land boom really, really set in motion a lot of changes. The bridge was one of them. Also, Flagler wanted this skyline for his city, the Flagler city. Anyway, this is a shot from a room in the Ponce de Leon Hotel, which is now Flagler College, with this wonderful radium fireplace. As I said, you can still see the radium chimneys if you walk around Flagler College, but they've been disassembled. Obviously, the holes that were needed to make them work have been filled in, but this kind of grandeur. How did he get all this marble and stone in the 1880s, before he even had his railroad constructed, in a state less than 20 years after the Civil War, the original church, the original bank, more people massing. So this was in 1927, right after the bridge opened. Flagler's Bridge to complete his skyline. Again, see, I didn't believe that this possibly could have been built in the 20s. This bridge is so spectacular. But again, these people, they did their homework. These were built at the same time, as much as I hate to believe it. They were, but boy, did they do their homework and make things look right. There's an early shot. That's the bridge before renovation. That's the old bridge with the trolley. I remember this. This is when they renovated the bridge, 2006 to 2010. I remember this. This is the old bridge. And this is the funky new bridge they built to get people across the Matanzas River. So this is Anastasia Island over here. St. Augustine is behind us. Anastasia Island over here. You can't see the lighthouse in this shot, but the area of Davis Shores is over here. Davis, the man who had a lot to do with the bridge being built in the first place. Some detail on the bridge. This is the bridge before renovation. I can tell by the colors. I believe that this is called bascule when the drawbridge opens that way. So this is a double bascule bridge, and this silly old ridiculous pirate ship still takes people on tours. Another shot of one of the lions. This is the second bridge. There was a bridge for cars and there was a bridge for the trolley. And again, this is over on the Volano Beach side, so north of the city of St. Augustine, over on the beach side. So Flagler bought the tracks, he bought the railroads, but there were horses. Why didn't they have the technology to run their trams? There's the bridge before renovation. I remember this one too. And the bridge after renovation. This is just a quick map of the Flagler system, Jacksonville all the way to the Keys. 40s, 50s. Place de Constitution. That's the Presbyterian Church. That's the Casa Monica. This was a wax museum at the time. It's not anymore. And this is supposed to be where the Hotel San Agustin stood. That's the slave market there. There is the Hotel Casa Monica, which Flagler bought and renamed the Cordova. This is the front of what would have been there, the Hotel Alcazar. Now it's the Leitner Museum. And this is King Street here. This is the side street between them. And as I said, in 1906, he built a bridge connecting them and they're still there. So yeah, so you've already got 4 grand hotels: the St. Augustine, the Ponce de Leon, the Alcazar, and the Hotel San Marco. And that's not enough. So you want to build another one. And Smith built that, but he went broke. So Flagler had to buy it. Yeah, that makes sense. Here's our building. Again, these are the 2 towers, the bell towers at Flagler College, the Catholic Church, the Treasury Building. This is the Tartarian smokestack at Flagler College, which you saw in an older photo. And this is the Memorial Cathedral, which is another story, another video. Presbyterian Memorial Cathedral, St. Augustine Memorial Cathedral. You can look on your own about that. That's something else that we are to believe. Flagler built in 1 year to commemorate the death of his daughter. Yeah, right. Anyway, my beautiful city. That's the Casa Monica. There's a detail of the Casa Monica. 1 year. 1 year. Cordova Hotel. 1 year. It's what it looks like today. They really stayed with the theme when they refinished the front of it. There's a shot indoors. 1 year. Back then, when that's what cars look like, another shot of back then. Built it in less than 2 years. Less than 2 years. And there we're back at the beginning. So once again, this was a long video. I thank you for holding out with me. Once I realized that I wasn't going to be able to prove my theory that this this building was built to be a dirigible stop, I got really disappointed and disinterested and didn't want to do it anymore. But then I decided to turn it into a little history walk about this building, the builder of this building, and all of the dirty, nasty Flagler money shenanigans. I mean, I think the most interesting thing I discovered in doing the research for this one, sadly, is that Flagler used the grounds, all of the magnificent sacred geometry around our star fort for a golf course. Yeah. The new cathedral, by the way, which is right next to this, was rebuilt in 1793 to 1797 after the fire and hurricane that you saw in an earlier photo when Spain reclaimed Florida. And the cathedral that you see now looks pretty much the way it did then, with some simple renovations. But I just wanted to close with my original idea, sadly, that I will not be able to prove that this was a dirigible stop, that was originally a dirigible More, because it looks like a dirigible More. The Hindenburg crashed in 1937. This was built in 1926-27. Dirigibles were still flying all over the world and all over Florida. There were Moors in Opelika, which is south near Miami, in Miami itself, in Jacksonville, which is an hour north, in Flagler, which is less than an hour south, and St. Petersburg, which is across the state. So, I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe that was a consideration in the building. Mr. Hollingsworth, the man who designed and executed this building, part of why he was hired was his attention to historical archaeology and being a preservationalist architect. That were part of the credentialing that got him hired by Flagler. Now, I understand why he installed all of what appeared to be plasma collectors and the red brick facing over the windows, the basic design of the whole thing, the ornate bell tower, whatever you want to call it, light tower, dirigible More, whatever you want to call it. I understand now why he built things the way he did. But Flagler, being the man that he was with the mind for business, I can also imagine that he would have loved to have had a Zeppelin More here. The Gaff Zeppelin was in Miami. I've seen photos. It was in Jacksonville. I've seen photos, and it was in St. Petersburg, the famous Gaff Zeppelin. Wouldn't it have been lovely to have a Zeppelin More right here in his city, the Riviera of the American Southeast? Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It was an interesting video to research. I know it was a very long one, full of my usual minutia. I am very grateful for you hanging out with me all this time, wishing you a fantastic day and hopes for no unnecessary confusion or morbidity. There's plenty of morbidity here in St. Augustine. So hashtag Tartaria, hashtag history is all lies. Thank you so much. This is Medusa Was Framed, signing out.